All right, everyone ready to dive into some cool research?
Always up for a deep dive, especially when it involves AI.
Well, this one's pretty wild. It's about using AI chatbots to actually help people become better writers.
I've seen some chatter about that. Sounds futuristic.
It does, right?
Yeah.
But this research is coming straight out of Vietnam, and it focuses specifically on English as a foreign language learners.
So using AI to boost language skills.
Exactly. The researchers created this special chatbot. They call it the Writing Assistant Bot, or WAB.
Catchy name. And what does this WAB actually do?
Well, I kind of imagine it like a superpowered writing buddy, like it gives you weekly writing prompts, helps you brainstorm.
So it's more than just a grammar checker.
Oh, yeah, way more. Students can actually write and submit their essays right there in the platform.
And the chatbot's there to help them every step of the way.
That's what makes this study so cool, right? They actually look at how this kind of AI support impacts actual writing skills.
So did they just throw the chatbot at the students and see what happened?
Not quite. They had 47 high schoolers, all learning English, divided into groups based on their starting proficiency.
Makes sense. Got to count for different levels.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I'm super curious about what they were actually asking the chatbot. Was it more like, hey, what's a fancy word for? Or was it more, help, I'm lost, how do I even structure an essay?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. The researchers dove into the chat logs to see how the students were using the WA, and you know what? Both of your guesses were spot on.
No way. So they were using it for everything.
Pretty much. The students who were less proficient in English really relied on it during the early stages of writing, like brainstorming ideas, searching for the right vocab.
So like a personalized vocab builder, an idea generator.
You got it. But the students who were already pretty comfortable writing in English, they used it differently.
How so?
They were all about refining their work, asking the WAB to help them clarify arguments, find more sophisticated vocabulary, make their writing shine,
Also like a digital editor who's always on call?
Exactly. But there was one thing that both groups did, no matter their English level.
What's that?
They constantly asked the WAB for help with vocabulary and content.
Okay, that makes sense. Even for experienced writers, those can be tricky. But did all this chatbot interaction actually lead to better writing? Like, did their skills actually improve?
That's the big question, right? And the answer seems to be a resounding yes. They used pre- and post-tests to measure the students' writing skills.
So timed essays and stuff.
Exactly. And get this, the chatbot significantly boosted writing performance across the board. Content, organization, vocabulary, the whole shebang.
Wow, okay, so the chatbot's making a real difference.
Right.
But what about the students themselves? Did they actually enjoy using it? I mean, writing essays with a chatbot doesn't exactly sound like a party.
Well, you might be surprised to hear that the students seem to love it. They found the WAB super helpful and easy to use.
Seriously.
Seriously. They loved the quick feedback, the personalized support, and the fact that it was available 24/7.
Okay, I gotta admit, I'm intrigued. But before we go full-on chatbot fan club, I'm guessing there were some challenges too, right? Like, did anyone worry about becoming too reliant on this digital writing guru?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll definitely unpack when we come back. We'll delve into the student perceptions and see what this all means for the future of learning.
Ooh, cliffhanger. Can't wait to hear more. We'll be back soon with part 2.
Welcome back, everyone. Excited to jump back into our exploration of AI chatbots and how they might just revolutionize the way we learn.
Last time we were talking about this study in Vietnam where they used a chatbot called the WAB to help high schoolers improve their English writing skills.
Right, and we saw how the chatbot actually led to some pretty impressive improvements in their writing.
Yeah, and they seem to really enjoy using it too. But we left off on the question of whether students might become too reliant on the chatbot. So what did the researchers find out about that?
Well, they were pretty thorough. They didn't just look at the before and after writing samples. They also gave the students questionnaires and even interviewed them.
Smart moves. Getting those personal insights can really add depth to the research.
Definitely. And when they dug into the student perceptions, a really interesting pattern emerged.
Okay, I'm all ears. What was it?
It turns out that most students were already thinking strategically about how they used the WEB.
So they weren't just blindly relying on it to do all the work for them.
Nope, not at all. They understood that it was a tool to help them improve their writing, not a magic essay writing machine.
That's encouraging. Like they were developing good learning habits along with their writing skills.
Exactly. One student actually said, and I quote, "The chatbot doesn't provide complete essays. It acts more as a guide." stimulating us to complete our own work and independently develop our writing skills.
Wow, I love that quote. It shows real self-awareness and a good understanding of how to use the chatbot effectively.
Right. And another student talked about how they would always brainstorm their own ideas first and then use the WAB to get feedback. Maybe find better ways to express those ideas or see if they were missing any important angles.
So the chatbot becomes more like a sounding board to help them refine their thinking rather than a crutch.
Precisely. And some students even talked about setting limits for themselves. Like, they might use the WAB for brainstorming at the beginning, but then they would intentionally put it away while they actually wrote the essay. They'd only bring it back out for feedback during the revision process.
That's fascinating. It sounds like they were really tuning into their own learning process and figuring out how to make the chatbot work best for them.
Absolutely. And this brings us to another important point: user friendliness.
Oh, right. A super complex AI tool isn't going to be very helpful if students can't even figure out how to use it.
Exactly, especially for students who are still learning a new language. You don't want the tool itself to become another obstacle.
Makes sense. So how did the students find the WAB in terms of ease of use?
They loved it. They said it was really easy to communicate with, even if their English wasn't perfect.
That's a huge plus. I can imagine it would be pretty intimidating to use a tool that's supposed to help you with English if you can't even figure out how to use the tool itself.
One student put it this way: I just need to use simple commands, and the AI can understand and fulfill my requests, making using this chatbot very straightforward.
And that's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Like, it's a patient and friendly tool that's there to help you no matter what.
Exactly. And another student mentioned that even though the chatbot's responses could sometimes be pretty detailed and complex, they liked how the information was broken down into smaller chunks, making it easier to digest.
That's a sign of good design. They clearly put a lot of thought into how students actually learn. Now, I'm sure no system is perfect.
Yeah.
Did the students have any suggestions for improvement?
Well, a few of them mentioned some occasional technical hiccups, like slow response times or having trouble logging in.
Ah, yes, the joys of technology. Those little glitches can be annoying.
Right. But they weren't major issues, just things that could be improved for a smoother user experience. There were also a few students who said they wished the chatbot could provide sources for the information it was giving them.
I see. Like, where did the chatbot get this information? Can I trust it?
Yeah, it's an important point, especially these days when we need to be critical of the information we encounter online.
Definitely. But overall, it sounds like the student feedback was really positive.
It was overwhelmingly positive. They found the WAB helpful, easy to use, and, get this, inspiring.
Inspiring. That's not a word I would typically associate with a chatbot. Tell me more about that.
Well, a lot of students talked about how using the WAB didn't just help them write better essays, it actually made them think about things in new ways and explore new ideas.
Wow, so it went beyond just the mechanics of writing and tapped into that deeper level of learning and critical thinking.
Exactly, and that speaks to the real potential of AI in education. It's not about replacing human connection or creativity. It's about creating new avenues for personalized learning and amplifying what's already there.
I'm really starting to see how this could change the game in education. But I know we also need to be mindful of the potential downsides. We've talked about over-reliance, but are there other ethical considerations we should be thinking about as AI becomes more integrated into learning?
That's a crucial question, and it's one we can't afford to ignore. While this study didn't specifically focus on the ethical implications of AI in education, it definitely raises some important questions.
Okay, so let's dive into those. What are some of the things we should be thinking about?
Well, for starters, we need to ensure that these AI tools are accessible to all students, regardless of their background or resources. We don't want to create a situation where only certain students benefit from this technology while others are left behind.
Right. Access and equity are paramount. What else?
We also need to be very careful about data privacy and security. These AI tools are collecting a lot of information about students, and we need to make sure that data is being handled responsibly and ethically.
Yeah, that's a big one. No one wants their learning data ending up in the wrong hands. Anything else?
Another important consideration is bias. AI algorithms are trained on massive data sets, and if those data sets contain biases, those biases can be reflected in the way the AI tool functions.
So, for example, if the chatbot was trained on essays that primarily reflect a certain writing style or cultural perspective, it might unintentionally penalize students who write differently.
Exactly. We need to be very mindful of potential biases in these AI tools and work to mitigate them.
This is all really important stuff. It sounds like as exciting as this technology is, we need to proceed with caution and really think through the implications.
Absolutely. But I think it's also important to remember that this technology is still evolving. As we learn more about AI and its potential in education, we can continue to refine these tools and develop best practices for their use.
So it's a journey, not a destination. And this study is a great first step in that journey. It's given us a lot to think about, both in terms of the possibilities and the potential challenges.
It has. And speaking of possibilities, I think it's time we shift gears and talk about what this research might mean for the future of learning.
Okay, I'm ready for some future gazing. Let's take a quick break and come back for the final part of our AI chatbot deep dive, where we'll explore the potential of this technology to transform the way we learn. And we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into the world of AI chatbots and their potential to reshape education as we know it.
I think we've uncovered some really fascinating insights, wouldn't you say? From how those Vietnamese high schoolers were using the WAB to boost their writing skills to those bigger questions about ethics and access.
It's been a wild ride for sure, but now I'm really curious about the future. Like, is this a glimpse of what's to come? Are we all going to have AI tutors by our side as we learn?
It's always tricky predicting the future, right? But this study definitely gives us a lot to think about, that's for sure.
So let's put on our future gazing hats for a minute. What kind of possibilities does this research open up?
Well, one of the most exciting things is the potential for truly personalized learning. Like, imagine a world where each student has access to a chatbot tutor that adapts to their individual learning style, their pace, their unique needs.
Oh, yeah. It'd be like having a custom-designed learning path, like a guide every step of the way.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just individual support. AI chatbots could help create more collaborative learning environments, too.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, think about students working on a project together, right? They could use a chatbot to brainstorm ideas, get feedback on their drafts, even work through disagreements about content or style.
So it's like a neutral mediator, helping them navigate those sometimes tricky group dynamics.
You got it. It could also help level the playing field for students who might be a little shy about speaking up in groups or those who don't have as much support outside of class.
Yeah, making learning more inclusive, more accessible for everyone. I love that.
Another thing to think about is using AI chatbots for language learning beyond just writing.
Oh yeah, like for speaking practice or pronunciation.
Exactly. Imagine a chatbot that can hold a conversation with you in another language, giving you real-time feedback on your pronunciation and grammar.
That would be amazing. Like having a 247 language partner who never gets tired of hearing you stumble through those verb conjugations.
Exactly. And it could help people overcome that fear of making mistakes, which I think we all know can be a huge barrier to actually learning a language.
Oh, tell me about it. I've been trying to learn Spanish, and sometimes I get so self-conscious about my accent, I just freeze up.
Well, a chatbot wouldn't judge you or get impatient. It just keeps encouraging you to practice and improve.
That's a huge benefit. And you know what else is cool? This idea of even AI chatbots for lifelong learning. So it's not just limited to schools and universities, right?
Right. Think about it. You could use a chatbot to learn a new skill, explore a hobby, even just stay up to date on what's happening in the world.
It's like having a personal knowledge curator, tailoring everything to your interests.
Exactly. And this could be especially beneficial for older adults who might not have easy access to traditional learning environments.
It could help people stay engaged, mentally sharp, no matter their age.
Totally. So as you can see, the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing. But of course, we got to balance all this excitement with a dose of reality, right?
Right. We can't just blindly jump into the AI deep end without thinking about potential downsides.
Exactly. We've already touched on some of those ethical concerns, but there are practical challenges too. Like building these AI chatbots, it takes a lot of resources, expertise. It's not simple.
So it's not like you can just whip up a chatbot and expect it to revolutionize education overnight.
Haha, I wish.
Yeah.
It takes careful planning, design, testing, the whole 9 yards.
And of course, we got to make sure these tools are being used ethically, responsibly, like we talked about before.
Couldn't agree more. But I think even with those challenges, AI has the potential to truly revolutionize the way we learn. And studies like this one are really paving the way for a future of education that's more personalized, engaging, and accessible.
This deep dive has totally changed my perspective on AI and education. It's been fascinating. Any parting thoughts for our listeners before we sign off?
Well, if there's one thing I want people to take away from this, it's that AI is not something to be afraid of. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. But when it's used thoughtfully, ethically, it has the power to amplify human capabilities and open up amazing new opportunities for learning. So keep an open mind, keep exploring, keep learning, and who knows? Maybe we'll all have our own personalized AI learning buddies someday soon.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.